I was there, and she summoned me back. And she's sitting there, I mean, obviously desperately ill, gaunt. She stood right up and said, "How you doing, baby?" I said, "Well, I'm doing better now." And she said, "Well, look at me. I finally got thin again." I took a lot of guts to say that. And then she went out into this setting. And all these people who loved her and were awestruck and said, "Can you believe she showed up?" And she sang not one song, not two songs, not three songs. She had to bring a chair out, and she sang for 45 straight minutes. That's what I want to say to the young people here, the people who may not even know the names of the people who were influences on her. I went back and was literally awestruck reading her autobiography at how generous she was to call the names of dozens of gospel singers and musicians, of artists, of soul singers that most people don't know. And to say they're underappreciated. She kept filling out her life. But I'll never forget her. She stood up singing in that cathedral when she could. She sat down when she got tired. She even went over and played one song on the piano just to make sure none of us forgot that she was real good at that. So, our friends, our family member, our mother, our grandmother, our aunt, or whoever, she did as she dominated our ups and downs and joys and heartbreaks when we started off listening to her first on the radio, right into buying the records. Then you got tapes. You had to have a tape deck. The CDs, then you had to have a CD player. Now all you need to do is carry one of these little phones around. If you're as ancient as I am, it seems incredible, all the music in the world right here. But she did this great thing, knowing she could not live long. And she even told the audience that that day she had gotten a good medical report. I have no idea if it's true or not, because it was after I left her. But I know one thing, she wanted them to sit back, relax, feel good, and listen to her sing and not worry about how long she was going to live. Now, we're living in a time where a lot of the virtues I just described to you are not very much in fashion. She cared about broken people. She cared about people who were disappointed. She cared about people who didn't quite succeed as much as she did. She wrote about them all in her book. And I can tell you, I've had an editor. Her editor was eating her. Aretha, leave these people's names out. Nobody knows who they are. I do. And if they don't know who they are, they should have. So this is what I think you should remember in this time about this magnificent woman. She worked her can off to get where she was. She took the gifts God gave her, and she kept getting a little bigger every day. So, it's the best I can do. It's the key to freedom. God bless you, Aretha. We love you.
The one and only president, the president of the United States, President William Jefferson Clinton. At this time, Audrey DuBois Harris is going to bring to us one of the hymns of the church. And following that, we're going to go to church with Pastor Shirley Caesar and Tasha Cobb and the Aretha Franklin Concert Choir. Let's receive them this time.
children. 12 are gone, and I'm still here. But had not been for the Lord, that will hold my child. Oh, no, no. But I want to say to the family, to be absent from this clay house is to be in the presence of the Lord. All we can say is sleep on Aretha. There's nothing that we can do to turn it around. I often wonder when I see people on their deathbed and they breathe their last breath. I just have to believe that God grabs that last breath. I saw my mom when she breathed her last breath. When she let it go, God grabbed it. So I want to say to the family, be not dismayed. Whatever betide, God will. Take care of you. I want to say to the family, I can't tell you not to cry, because God knows how to take those tears, wash our misery away. I want to say to the grandchildren and the great-grandchildren, Aretha lived a good life, and I thank God that she did not die in disgrace. Come on and clap your hands, everybody. I got over. I got over. So
and only Pastor Shirley Caesar and Tasha Cobbs. Give God praise for them again. I present to you at this time the people's judge, one who always had the back of Miss Aretha Franklin. It was at that time when the press came after her, when her home had caught on fire in Bloomfield Township, and they were making some other accusations, and it was the people's judge. He wasn't even on TV at that time, Greg Mathis. He called me at that time and he said, Bishop, we need to call Reverend Holly and we need to call a press conference because we need to take the press to task for Miss Aretha Franklin. Give God praise for one who had her back, Judge Greg Mathis. He'll be followed by Reverend Dr. Jim Holly, who will be followed by Brenda Lawrence, and then the Reverend Donald Parsons. Let's receive them in this order.
Thank you, Bishop. As you heard, we call him first. Give a big hand to Bishop Ellis. Brought my program up here. Tyler Perry tried to buy it, so I wouldn't sell it to him. I better keep it in my hand. Isn't this a great privilege to be able to participate in the homegoing of the woman who has been named by every credible source as the greatest singer of all times? Isn't it a great privilege? God has blessed us to be here. You know, I met Sister Aretha back in the 80s around the Jackson campaign. I met her through Reverend Jackson in the 88 campaign, and later on with Mayor Coleman Young, when I was working with him, he made sure that any need she might have, we address it, because she was addressing every need citizens of Detroit had. And then she had Earlene, her sister-in-law, bring me to her events, and we got to know each other a little more. And then once I became a public figure who had a platform to make a difference in the struggle for civil rights and politics, she embraced me as a friend. And my wife and I would travel various places with her, as some here would. And quite frankly, that showed a lot of strength in her. We all know of the endurance that she has bared through the loss of her father and her siblings. But I personally observed a different type of strength that she wanted to portray to the public. You know, several years ago, there was a lot of speculation about her health all throughout the country. The radio saying nonsense, things they don't know about. I never asked, and those friends and family of hers never asked, because you knew not to ask. But she wanted to make a point. First, I believe we were in Washington, D.C. when she first wanted to make her point. We were there with one of the honors she was receiving. And so she said, Greg, let's go to lunch. You get your wife and let's all go to lunch. Come meet me at the Four Seasons. I said, okay, good. We're going to go and meet Sister Rhea at the Four Seasons and have us I think it was a Sunday, we're going to have us a great brunch and such and such. So we're all there. She said, okay, come on, Greg. We get to, I say, Rhea, where we going? She said, we're going to walk a half a mile down to the Johnny Rockets in Georgetown. And we walked to Johnny Rockets, and she didn't stumble a bit, and everybody stopped and waved, and the radios next day had to talk about how she was walking with the strength of a lioness. And then lastly, we were going to a Pistons game. Indeed, we went to a Pistons game, and Isaiah Thomas, and this is perhaps a few years ago as well, and she wanted everyone to know that the speculation about her health was wrong. And so we went, and we were courtside, and Reverend was with us, or I was with him, or however you want to make reference to it. And LeBron James comes over and speaks to her. We're on the floor, and so she says, I think I want to go and get something from, I don't know whether it was a Coca-Cola or a bite. He said, I think I want to go and get something to eat or a bite or a drink. I said, okay. I thought we were going to all go and just around the stadium perhaps, or send someone to get it. She said, no, I want to walk to the top of the arena. Let these folks know how I really feel. So we proceeded to walk from courtside to the top of the arena to show that her health was better than mine and many of you all who couldn't walk to the top of that arena from courtside. And so she always wanted folks to know her strength. And they cut my mic. Somebody going to jail. Y'all know play that now. Don't go to jail now. I'm gonna take these 60 seconds, but don't get yourself in trouble. But I was privileged to receive her advice and counsel in the area of politics and civil rights. As you all know, that she was deep in that, and she wanted me to use my public life in that manner. And so one time we were discussing some of the many things that we come about, and she asked me about Reverend Jackson. You talk to your buddy, or you talk to the good reverend? That means she wasn't getting along with him. Then like siblings do. Then a couple months later, I talked to her. Hey, I talked to Jesse. I said, oh, he must be doing what she wants him to do. Oh, yeah, he's on the other side. He's marching for this. He's doing a great job. And so she would call me quite frequently, about monthly, and for the most part, had to wait on her call, because the few times I'd call her, I'd get my feelings hurt because her number had been changed. And so I'd have to wait those 2 months or a month or however long before she would call me and give me the new number. But when she did, she always spoke to me about how to use my platform to fight for our people. Indeed, our last conversation, and I probably shouldn't speak on this, but because the governor was here earlier, but our last conversation was about the Flint water crisis. Where we know now that the governor's office ordered that the city of Flint be taken over, they changed the water supply and it poisoned the people. So we talked about how in the last couple of months, they stopped distributing bottled water. Have not replaced the pipes, maybe 5%, but distributing bottled water. So we discussed it, and she said, yeah, they've stopped distributing the water, Greg. I said, well, yeah, Sister Ree, I may have to get on up there and fight again, et cetera, et cetera. I say, but you know, they got me a little bit last time on television. They said, the judge, you out of order. That's not your fight. Stay on television and he and ha and entertain us. So I said, I don't know, Ree. She said, what are you scared? You're supposed to be from Detroit. What you scared of? So in that vein, her last words to me were taken, and this is the honesty. This is honestly the case. Her last words were taken from the greatest song she's performed. And somehow it made me feel that she respected me, because the words she gave, when I told her, okay, I'll go back up there, she said, yeah, Greg, you go back up there and you sock it to him. So in honor of my sister, I'm going to Flint and I'm going to sock it to him, sock it to him, sock it to him.
Let the church say amen. Let the church say amen again. My sister and brother, we are here today not because Aretha died, but because she lived. I worked 3 days working on my remarks. Shirley Caesar got up and I was shouting. Somebody took my marks. I've been looking for them. Evidently, I just need to tell you it comes off the cuff. I think it was a great wise woman by the name of Maya Angelou that said, I think it's still, the words that she said is still the test of time. She said there will be people that you will forget how they make you, how they really, what they do for you. Every now and then you find people that they may do other things for you, but they'll never make you forget how they make you feel. And I think it's true with Aretha. We'll never forget how she made us feel. I'm not going to bother this today with a lot of remarks, along because the bishop has already told us, but I'm very blessed. I'm a blessed man. I'm blessed because I was a friend of Aretha, a friend of this family. I was with this family when her father passed. I was with her, with her 2 sisters, her brother, and I was with her when she passed. I'm a blessed man because of my relationship with the family. I love me Aretha. Let me tell you again, I really love me Aretha. And Aretha loved her some Jim Holly. Finally, I had told my church that I was had to have an operation, a reconstruction of a stroke that I had, and they were basically wanting to do another reconstruction of the surgery. And lo and behold, guess who called me? She had her caretaker, Beverly, to call me and ask me how I'm feeling. That's like 3 weeks prior to this. She was asking me how I was feeling. I said, Aretha, surely that's not, yes, I'm asking you, how do you feel? That's the kind of woman she was. I just want you to know, my sisters and brothers, that we all have different experiences. And we're here because of how she made us feel. But I want you also to know that she's been in some of the most sacred and most profound places in this world. And she never forgot Detroit.
I want to say hello, Detroit. Today, I have the honor to stand here to share and celebrate a life of Aretha Franklin. I want to recognize my colleagues again that's with me, Congresswoman Joyce Beatty from Ohio, Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee from Texas. Where is the diva, Maxine Waters, who represents us so well? And my colleague Debbie Dingle was here as well. Sheila Jackson Lee has submitted a resolution to be presented to the family. There's so many accolades and amazing accomplishments that Aretha Franklin has received throughout her life. And she said, I'm having an event and I want you to come. I said, no, wait a minute. Who you say you are? And she said, Aretha. And she said, the event would be, I said, no, excuse me, ma'am, but you mean Aretha Franklin, like Queen of Soul, Aretha Franklin? And she said, she chuckled, she said, yes. I said, oh my goodness, anywhere you want me to be. But from that moment on, having the opportunity to talk and to see her perform her art, to see her love her family, oh, her grandchildren. I had to listen to about how great and amazing you are. I want every woman in this room, because someone said, what do you take away from Aretha? Here's a woman who had accomplishments more than anyone I have known. And she called me, the little black girl from the east side of Detroit, to say she was proud of me. So to every woman in this room, it's about a woman being strong enough and confident enough to put her arms around other women. It's also about when you listen to her lyrics and she went through life, she lived life. And when you live life, life has moments where it's not very kind. She never gave up. She stood up, she had dignity. She had the thing that she demanded. And they keep playing this clip. Everybody wants to be respected. I am so proud to have known and to share my life with the amazing queen. To honor her, Kamala Harris, Senator Harris called me, and we're talking, said we have to do something. So on the Senate side, she introduced the gold medal, the Congressional Gold Medal. And on the congressional side, I introduced the Congressional Gold Medal. Now I want you to know how amazing it is. The people who have received this, like Robert Kennedy, Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King, and the first one went to George Washington. The Queen deserves this gold medal, and I'm honored to give it to her. I love you, Queen.
God bless you. It's a wonderful time to celebrate the life and times of Aretha. My reason for standing here is because Aretha was an awesome individual. Aretha the unique, Aretha the incredible, Aretha the incomparable, Aretha the rarest gem of all, with amazing abilities to make all of us feel exceptionally special. She was a special person. I've always felt from a lot of years a part of this family. I met Aretha a couple of years ago when I was 17. What happened? It seems like only a couple of years ago when I was 17 and met Aretha after one of those youth days on Fifth Sunday at New Bethel, way back in the day with Sister Lucille Lemon and Thomas Shelby and Pastor C.L. That was a whole lot of years ago. I felt a part of this family since that point. I had a lot of meals at the Queen's house. When I wasn't there, I was over at Cecil's eating Earlene's croquettes. Awesome times with this family. I'd look up a lot of Sundays, and Eddie had sneaked over from Detroit over to Chicago to church. Get him back and put him on the bus and send him back home after church was over. This family was my family, but Aretha left a tremendous legacy, a legacy of unique skills and abilities, the way she nuanced the notes and cajole of the words and the lyrics, her ability to move at any register and shape the tone to her own voice and take ownership of the song was an amazing skill. There was absolutely no one like Aretha. She was our musical therapist. With the fingertips of her melodies, she touched our passion, our pain, and our protest. She had this unusual ability to take you to church no matter where you were. And she'd find a way to get you to church, whether it was I Never Loved a Man or Do Right Woman, it didn't matter. Before it was over, Aretha was going to say, the doors of the church are open now. She had that wonderful church feeling in her soul. There was no one like her, and I don't believe there will ever be another like Aretha. She left us all, we believe, too soon, but she gave us enough to make it on in her absence, and we've got to thank her for that. The celebration is amazing, but when the celebration is over, I can tell that some of you are going to have moments when you're going to find yourself at a place and time of reflection, and those moments are going to challenge your emotional strength. And I thought that a lot of other people will come and they will continue to augment what we already know about Aretha. But for her global fan family and for the families situated here in this room today, I'd like to just give you a little medicine for your mind and a strategy for your grief. I think it's important that you not just leave here with memories of the celebration as the only echoes of Aretha's presence, because many of us have not found out yet how to manage our misery. And I thought I would just give you a few pointers along the way, if it's okay. I first want to just suggest that most of us have spent so much time thinking about living, we've not thought about dying at all. And so I'd just like to remind you that sleep is a death you wake up from every morning. And death is a sleep you'll have to be resurrected from. I just thought you'd like to know that God has given us the ability to share intimate moments with people we find a part of our genetic pool, and we're bound together by commonality of blood, personality, and family roots. Thank God for all of this. But at some moment in time in life, these earth suits we have, just like a person needs a space suit to escape the atmosphere, you cannot survive in the genetics of our own atmospheric conditions without an earth suit. And at some point in time, you will have to give up the earth suit, because after all, we are only spiritual beings having a human experience. And I thought it would be important if I just told you a couple of things to put you at ease. Death, one, is the admission we pay for living, except we pay on the way out instead of on the way in. What I'd like to tell you is this. First, death does not hurt, life does. Scoot your chair up and stay awake. Death does not hurt. Dead people don't cry. Dead people don't have pain. Thank God that God has given Aretha the freedom she needs to soar. After all, you remember, and I remember, that Aretha had phobias, and we discussed it about flying. She took a lot of lessons, invited me and a lot of others to come over and get on that flight with her from Metro Airport. Then she changed her mind. I remember that, but I'm here to tell you she's lost her fear of flying today. She's no longer afraid to fly. Matter of fact, I've simply come to tell you, I know that we've spent a lot of time saying she's departed, but I've come to tell you she's had a status change. She's no longer with the departed. She's now counted among the arrived. So whatever you do, don't play that departed song no more. Because she's arrived. Well, how do you know she's arrived, Pastor? The scripture says to be absent in the body is to be present with the Lord. Let me tell you these three things before I use my time allotted. Death does not hurt. Life hurts. So don't have any fears or any apprehensions about Aretha's state of mind. She's free from hurt at this moment. And authentic love has a desire for the one who is loved to have what is best for them and not what is best for us. We've got to want what is best for Aretha. Secondly, I would tell you that the people who leave us are happier than the folk they leave behind. She's excited about where she's gone. And the only reason you are not is because perhaps you've never read the brochure. If you'd read the brochure, then you'd want to go where Aretha's gone. Finally, I would say to you, she has not gone to some place. She's gone to someone.
The Reverend Dr. Donald Parsons, the one and only. At this time, while we're ready and preparing to receive the music ministry of Shaka Khan and Ronald Isley, I want to just bring Mother Fanny Tyler up quickly. Mother Fanny Tyler. And listen, God bless Miss Aretha Franklin to rise to an astronomical height where she has met all kinds of individuals, including presidents of the United States, kings and queens. But she never forgot those individuals who she counted on back at home. This is Mother Fanny Tyler. This is the one that Miss Franklin trusted to send her messages. This is the one that Miss Franklin trusted to deliver the mail. This is the one that Miss Aretha Franklin wrote checks to and gave to, and she delivered to many of us. When they called me and would tell me that there's a Fanny Tyler at the front desk, I say, send her up. Because I know she didn't want no counseling. She had a check from the Queen, $10,000, $5,000. She'd hand me that envelope and say, the Queen says she still hear them joy bells. Keep on doing what you're doing. The last time she came and blessed me about 6 months ago, she had 2 envelopes. I said, Lord Jesus, the Queen is being very generous. She gave me the one, it was $10,000 in it. And my dad always sang that song, Joy Bells. And she always said, I still hear them joy bells your father sings. And I said, well, what's that other check for? She said, that's for your brother. There's $5,000 in there. I said, he don't hear no joy bells. This is the one and only that Miss Franklin would trust with her checks to deliver, to bless people, benevolent causes, churches, pastors, students that needed tuition. This is the mail lady of Miss Aretha Franklin. I want you all to stand and give Mother Fanny Tyler a great big hand. We bring to you next one as Miss Franklin, who has had the staying power through decades. Although he's not as popular as Miss Franklin, he had to change his name to keep staying power. He went from Ronnie Isley to Mr. Big. Aretha has been on top for decades with the same name. Brother King, there's only one queen. Put your hands together for our own Ronnie Isley, Mr. Big.
Lord have mercy. You know, Aretha, she would ask me, what you gonna sing? I say, well, I'm gonna sing something soft or something. You know, have you ever heard the Clark sisters? Lord have mercy. And I just the celebration here tonight is just, whew. I should have brought the brothers here. I should have brought the band. Maybe we do some shouting, something. All right. She would always talk about Karen Clark, Shirley Caesar, all the time. For 60 years. 60 years. She loved you. She would talk about Karen so much. And I don't think Karen knows this. She would say, we're going to do a record together. And we're going to do the next record together. I would try to suggest songs. But let me go on this. Why does the shadows all come? No, why does my heart feel so so long? Long for heaven, my home. When Jesus is my portion. Oh, a constant friend is he. Oh, yeah. His eyes, his own sparrow watches me. And I sing because you know I'm happy. Oh, I'm happy. And I sing because I'm free, free, free. His eyes is all on the sparrow, and I know he watches me. He watches me. Oh, his eyes is on the sparrow, sparrow. I know, I know, I know, I know, he watches me. Watches. Forgive me.
Brother Ronnie Isley, come on and put your hands together for him. Miss Franklin, when she decided to move back into Detroit, she moved back to Detroit in the early 90s on the Detroit Golf Club course. And her home still stands as 4 doors down from my dad's house and our family home. And Miss Franklin, whenever she was giving her holiday parties at that home in Detroit, she would invite my dad, Bishop David Ellis, to come down and to pray a prayer that everything would go all right. And she would give him a carry out and send him back home up the block. Reverend Jesse Jackson got to stay for the whole party. I told him that the other day. He said somebody had to make sure everybody could get home. He has been a champion for civil rights down through the years. We know his health is not what it used to be, but for all that he has done down through the years, sometimes working and not receiving anything for it, standing on the front line and standing on that wall, I think we should all stand and receive this giant of a warrior for the urban community, for those who cannot speak for themselves. Receive the Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. He'll be followed by the Reverend Dr. William J. Barber II.
Pray. This is a celebration, but not a party. Aretha's not lost. We know where she is. Thanksgiving. God has blessed us to witness a powerful expression of his goodness today. Aretha was on this battleground for 60 years. Bow heads in prayer. Accept our petition, dear God. Search our hearts, you know our ways. Make us better, never bitter. More fit for the journey. Thank you for Reverend C.L. Franklin. Thank you for Aretha, Irma, Carolyn, and Cecil, bringing them our way. For the joy of their gifts, lessons they've learned, and lessons they've shared. Somehow let us leave this place today better off than when we came. We fall down, we get back up again, because the ground is no place for champions, and so we rise to higher heights. Amen. I was asked by the family to give some personal reflections. I've known Aretha almost 60 years, a lot of reflecting. I want Sabrina to stand again after these months of decline and going down the hill. The one to put all this stuff together has been Sabrina. Give Sabrina a big hand, would you please? I visited her at least once a month, and every time I was there, Eddie would be about to do as a bodyguard. He was her son. Eddie, stand again. Give him a big hand. Cousin Brenda. Son Brenda, just singing, Sam. Earlene, give another big hand. These no one's been more consistent than Will. Give Will a big hand. Give Will. Will has been, stand up, Will. He's been a trooper. I also want to, in the pastoral sense, thank the funeral home. Aretha was very sick toward the end. I was suspect that we should not open the body. But this funeral home, the Swanson, they've done a tremendous job. A big hand for O'Neill Swanson and his family. Big hand for O'Neill Swanson and his family. And last, we can't thank her too much for she's among the living yet among us. Another hand for Maxine Waters. Maxine, stand again, please. Three of my children are here today because this is a family affair. My son, Jesse Jackson Jr., and Santita, and Dr. Jackie Jackson. It is a holy privilege to stand before you today. Painful to stand before Aretha, this hour of celebration. I want to honor the family's wishes and protocol and keep my remarks as brief as I can, but it is about reflections, and I want to give the room for Reverend Jasper Williams, one of the most profound preachers of our time. Reverend C.L. Franklin's funeral was conducted by Reverend Williams, and he maintains that authority in the family. As we enter the next phase of the phenomenal Aretha Franklin, there's much to be said and done built on this legacy that can't be appropriately said today. Death has caused another unplanned family reunion. We wouldn't be here if Aretha were not dead today. We give death too much power. We should be able to call each other and have a meeting like this and share. I was here for the Rosa Parks funeral. and watched long lines at the museum for Rosa Parks, long lines for Aretha, long lines today. If we have long lines to celebrate death and short lines for voting, we lost Michigan by 11,000 votes. 100,000 Detroit unregistered. Long lines at the death of the icons and short lines for voting, something is missing. To many of us from the Deep South, before internet and before the nightly TV shows, before Dr. King and Rosa Parks, there was Jet Magazine, the national black newspapers, and WLAC Nashville, Tennessee. Every Sunday night at 11 o'clock, Big Horse Allen from Nashville would put on an hour of C.L. Franklin. He was our hero. The traditional sermons, Eagle Serveth the Nest, Prodigal Son, In the Conflict. He said, tonight I'm not going to preach, I'm going to introduce my daughter and she can sing. It's not just my daughter, my daddy pen, she can really sing. So hear me, and really sing, never grow. Reverend Billy Kyles, whose home Dr. King was on the way to visit when he was killed, was doing a revival in New Bethel at that time. He gave the words to Aretha. Of herds of a land on the faraway strand, there's a beautiful home of the soul. Build us Jesus on high where we never shall die, a land where we'll never grow. It was a dark Sunday night in South Carolina, yet when it's real dark, the stars shine most clearly. That night a star was born. Somewhere between Nashville and eternity, we heard a voice from heaven, 14 years old. Aretha was our queen. She belonged and belongs to us. She was blessed to have the powerful gift of singing, perhaps the most remarkable voice, unique the world has ever heard. Arturo Toscanini, the Italian conductor, said of Marian Anderson that a voice like Marian is heard once in 1,000 years. Aretha's in that zone of once in 1,000 years. And she did not shy away from Ave Maria. From that point on, she only required to be called Aretha. Reverend Franklin sent her to school, and she took music lessons and cultivated in the womb of most soulful singers of our time. New Bethel, Sam Cooke and the Soul Stirrers, Clara Ward and the Ward Singers, Mavis and Pop Staples. These are her. She came out of that womb. Lou Rawls and the Pilgrim Travelers, Mattie Moss Clark, Ira Tucker and the Dixie Hummingbirds, Alex Bradford, Too Close, Sister Houston, Whitney's mother, sang in the background, the Winans and Reverend Craig, the Gospel Harmonettes, Mahalia Jackson, Dinah Washington, the Canton Spirituals, the Mighty Clouds of Joy, and Joe Ligon. Reverend James Cleveland directed the choir at New Bethel. Aretha came out of this womb, Reverend Gaither and Reverend Clay Evans. She had the gifts, but she had an environment that loaned itself to her developing. She was baptized in singing, struggle, and service. In 1942, when she was born, not in Detroit, she was born on the Mississippi River in Memphis, Tennessee. The river that carried our people up and down for 246 years. Where does Aretha's soul come from? The Mississippi River. And it's cradled between Tennessee and Arkansas and Mississippi. 233 blacks were lynched in Tennessee, 492 in Arkansas, 654 in Mississippi. She was 13 when Emmett Till was lynched. What does her civil rights commitment come? She had money and could not buy ice cream. Had a car and could not stop to buy gasoline. Aretha came out of the bowels of our struggle. Her father led the big march in Detroit, 1963. Led the groundwork for Dr. King, who stayed at his home until March on Washington. Along with Harry Belafonte, Dr. King was facing bankruptcy. We couldn't go any further. Where was the money coming from? We couldn't get it from the banks. Black banks were too small. White banks were very hostile. And so Aretha and Harry Belafonte said, we'll take an 11-city tour, raise money and give you the money. But Dr. King was so unpopular, he was under such attack, we couldn't fill up an auditorium this size with Aretha Franklin and Harry Belafonte. We stepped on the stage in Houston, Texas. On that stage, they put tear gas in the fan where they evacuate the building. She kept right on singing. She sang for Carter, Mandela, Clinton, Obama. But she felt as comfortable singing for Albertina Walker. Because after all, before we had this level of technology, there was Albertina Walker and Shirley Caesar and Cassetta George in the same group called the Caribbeans. I was called last week to see Aretha. I met with her at least a month for the last 3 years. She called late at night. Jackie would say, get the phones. Aretha's on the phones. We're talking 2 to 5. We'd pray a while and cry a while. When I came last Wednesday, Aretha was in a coma and had not been able to wake up or move in some days. And I was with Earlene. And I said, Reed, wake up, baby, wake up, baby. She opened her eyes. I rubbed the warmth of her hand one more time, kissed her on the forehead and said, it was a hard goodbye. We came back that night with Sabrina and had another prayer meeting with her. Her father's records were playing in the background. I thought as I left the last time, Shakespeare said, when she shall die, take her hand and cut it up in little stars, and she will make the heavens so fine that all the world will be in love with night. Aretha had the power to make the film directors cry. She touched all of us in a very deep and profound kind of way. As she got sicker, we would talk more and more. She would call late at night, and are you coming? I said, yes, I'm going. You can bring Greg, and I'm not going to bring Greg. I don't really bother Greg. Inside joke. We went to 4 or 5 hospitals, and she was fighting this cancer thing. And to cap off singing in service, she went to New York knowing that she had pancreatic cancer. She went there in a bus to help Elton John and the AIDS victims. That is a signature moment in her life. All of her time she'd been spent seeing on her own situation, and yet she was there. She asked me to give her our favorite testimony. It was that when I was a kid, grew up in South Carolina, and I wonder why she would always talk about saying never grow, never grow, never grow. Archie Brownlee, a great singer for the blind boys, sang "Oh Why." Archer came on his last trip and said, I'm drinking liquor tonight. I'm not an alcoholic. But I have the 4th stage of cancer. And I don't have any insurance. The liquor is anesthesia for my pain. And so y'all forgive me for drinking, but I don't mean to disrespect you. He had this dog shades on his tap. He said, well, let me sing a couple of songs for you. He said, I know you're concerned that I'm drinking. I'm not a drunkard. I'm just drinking for pain. He said, but y'all talk about blue skies. I was born without eyes. I've never seen a blue. Red rose, I've never seen a rose. I can touch it. My wife is beautiful. I've never seen my wife's face. I know about the contour of her face. And my children, I know them by the sound of their voice and the pat of their feet. But don't feel sorry for me because I'm blind and have cancer. I am going across the river. I heard there's a man over there who's giving sight to the blind. He's curing cancer. When you hit that point in your life where the man is more over there than over here, a few months ago, Aretha was very afraid for me when they announced that I had Parkinson's. The older you get, these diseases, they come out of nowhere, it seems. But let me say to you today, who are the living, this is not for Aretha, this is for us. If you leave here today and don't register to vote, you dishonored Aretha. If you heard all this singing and don't feel something wrong with you. I can only say now, when we met, we were maybe 15 years old. I'm now 77. We're 78 in a few weeks. Parkinson's is in trouble. I have the faith. The doctor said Parkinson's will knock you down. It will, but there's a God who's the doctor of doctors. Don't fear these diseases when you're getting ready to change your clothes and move into a different transition. I can say now with a level of certainty I couldn't have years ago. I once was young. I've traveled to China, I've traveled to Japan, I've traveled to the Caribbean, all around the world. Worked with Dr. King, worked with Mandela. I've seen a lot and been a lot of places, but I've never seen the righteous forsaken, nor the seed beg for bread. Just sleep on, Aretha. See you in the morning.
We thank God today for this privilege and for God's goodness. I was sitting over there talking to my friend Derek Johnson, the president of the NAACP, and I said also to Bishop Ellis, anyone that can get Bishop Jakes and Farrakhan on the same platform, and Shirley Caesar and Shaka Khan on the same platform, that's some kind of woman. But if we really want to honor them, I said we ought to have one of these after this funeral just before election. Call all these same singers back, all these bishops back, all these ministers back, whatever small differences we have, put them aside, and let's have a televised revival and send people to the polls to vote. I'm ready, Bishop, are y'all? We can call it here today in the name of Aretha. The woman who won the popular vote for president invited me to the 2016 Democratic Convention, and I spoke about this heart business. And afterwards, I got a call And the call said, "This is Aretha Franklin. I'm from Piney Woods, North Carolina. I'm not from the big city, Detroit." I hung up. I thought it was a prank call. She called back and said, "Is this Reverend Barbara?" I said, "It is." She said, "This is Aretha Franklin." I said, "Prove it." She sang, and I said, "Good God from Zion, it's Aretha Franklin." She said, "I've been watching you. You're going to preach my revival in Detroit." I said, "Yes, ma'am." And we became text partners and prayer partners, and we would talk. On January 13th, she sent me a text I'll never forget. I'm working with the Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival with Liz Theo Harris. And she said, "Doing a good job, praying for you. I want you to do my last revival at New Bethel." The next text I got from her was, "I'm postponing them. Maybe we'll get them to next year. But I need people like you who know the power of prayer to go to the throne." In the book of Kings, the scriptures record that there was a time when the prophets of old could not declare truth and justice until the right singer sang. A certain music was needed to not only set the mood for the moment, but to open up the windows of heaven so God's voice could be heard on earth. Aretha was that kind of singer. She sang, Dr. Dyson, what W.B. Du Bois called the siftings of centuries, the sorrow songs that rose from the rhythmic cries of enslaved people. Du Bois said they are the music of an unhappy people, of the children of disappointment. They tell of death and suffering, of unvoiced longings toward a truer world, of misty wanderings and hidden ways. And yet, Du Bois helped us to see through all the sorrow there breathes a hope, a faith in the ultimate justice of things. The minor cadences of despair are changed into the triumphant major key of calm and confidence. Sometimes it is faith in this life. Sometimes it is faith in death. Sometimes it is assurance of boundless justice in some fair world beyond. But whichever it is, the meaning is always clear. That they sung in a way that said, sometime, somewhere, people will be judged by their souls and not by their skins. When Aretha sang, she lifted the downtrodden spirits and challenged presidents to remember the voices of millions because she sang the hope of the sorrow songs. Her voice was mixed with the joy and sadness, the tears and screams of her people down through the ages. She sang in our key, and she taught the world how to hear it. In Aretha, the holiness of the sacred and the secular came together in a way that could only be ordered by the Lord. Some say that even as the world spins, there is a certain tune to the world's orbit. Aretha tapped into that tune and taught us its rhythm. Somehow she gave you the feeling down on the inside that you were listening, as Dante said so long ago, to the love that moves the sun and the other stars. In the midst of a broken world, Aretha was our preeminent theomusicologist. She specialized in singing that moved the soul, stirred the spirit, and made us aware of a divine presence that could not be denied. And that was no matter where she sang, there was a certain sacredness. To hear Aretha in concert or at a church or on a record or on the radio, in a football stadium or at the forefront of the civil rights movement was a religious experience. Whether she was singing gospel, soul, pop, or opera, there was some theos, some God in her musicology. Recently, a brother of mine, Jonathan Hargrove, reminded us Aretha's singing flowed out of an interpretation of the Bible that condensed the collective wisdom of black people's faith rooted in resistance to white supremacy. For Aretha to have a relationship with Jesus was not to have a relationship with Trump, but to have a relationship with Jesus was always to necessarily engage in a quarrel with the systems that oppress poor people and black people and the disenfranchised. This is why Aretha's music did more to transform society in the 20th century than many Americans realize. Before Obama said, yes, we can, Aretha sang, we can conquer hate forever. Yes, we can. Our holy, holy, oh Lord, we can rock the world's foundation. Yes, we can. Better believe it. Holy, holy, together and holy, holler love across the nation. In the midst of our nation's current moral crisis, we need again that gospel that Aretha sang. So don't put it up. Keep playing it. Her singing was both spiritual revelation and skilled interpretation because she was singing from that sacred place carved from the moans and the music of the ancestors, because she was singing the experience of a people who had to cry in order not to die, because she was singing in the spirit, the Holy Ghost of those who sang in order to be saved. Aretha's singing challenged the dangling discords of hate and lies and racism and injustice. Her singing was liberation and was revolution in the major key. It carved out sacred space wherever she went, from the church to the club to the White House. Aretha showed us how the sorrow songs might yet save America, save this democracy, and keep us from bowing down to the structures of this world. When Aretha sang, the Holy Ghost came. No matter where you were, when she sang, it made you want to get up, not only to dance, but to do something about racism and something about poverty. When she sang, whether it was at a big concert for a civil rights rally or for an inauguration, her singing made you want to fight on a little while longer. Aretha's singing made you want to choose togetherness over division and love over hate. Her singing made you want to vote and to go find everybody you know and get them to vote. And if you don't have that kind of push and wanting to go forward, you really didn't hear her sing. Her singing made you want to stand up and fight back against political lies and policy fraud. Her singing made you say to every system of oppression and to any narcissistic leader, from the State House to the White House, no matter who you are, we will not accept anything less than respect. And if we have to vote to have respect, we'll vote. If we have to stand to have it, we'll stand. If we have to speak to have it, we'll speak. If we have to boycott to have it, we'll boycott. If we got to march to have it, we'll march. If we got to all go down to jail, it doesn't matter, because Aretha told us respect is non-negotiable. And that's why we respect Queen Mother of Soul. That's why the world reveres her, and it's why we will never stop remembering her and will never stop singing her song. And for the worshipers in here, those of you that know the way of the Spirit, if right now you would just tilt your spirit toward heaven a little bit, you will find out she's still singing. Lord have mercy. If she's crossed over to heaven, she's still singing. Now, she did have to go by the exchange counter and exchange her cross for a robe, but then she picked up a robe. Lord have mercy. And she went to sing with the choir in heaven. Can't you hear her still singing? Can't you hear her still moaning? Holy, 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 holy. Lord God Almighty, she's still singing.
Come on, give God praise for these two. Brothers and sisters, receive the music ministry of Fantasia.
I'm going to sing this one too. Miss Franklin. And I hope she don't mind. I don't think she would, but I think I'm going to come out of my shoes. When you're down in trouble, you need said, ain't nothing going right. All you got to do is just close your eyes and meditate on him, and soon he'll be there. God can brighten up, said he can brighten up your darkest hour. Can we take it up a notch? Can we do it? Precious Lord, take my hand, lead me on, let me stand. I get tired, and I get weak. To our family, all you gotta do is come, and he'll be there. You got a friend. I want you to know you got a friend in Jesus. If you ever need him, he'll be right there for you. He'll never, he'll never leave you. Anybody know what I'm saying about Jesus? You got a friend. You got a friend. You got a friend, family. You got a friend. You got a friend. Jesus. He's mine. He's mine. Oh, I love you, Jesus. I thank you for keeping the family. You got He's my friend. He's my friend. He's my friend.
Tell that neighbor you've got a friend. At this time, coming to give remarks and reflections, the one and only Tyler Perry. He will be followed by matriarch of Hollywood in that industry, African Americans, the one and only Cicely Tyson. They will be followed by Mr. Clive Davis, Chief Executive Officer of Sony Music. Let's receive these three, and then we will have Bishop Paul Morton and Yolanda Adams coming back with the choir.
God bless you, everybody. To the family, I just want to say my prayer for you is that God will allow you to grieve in waves. Not that it would come crashing on you all at once like a tsunami, but in waves, gently touching your soul. That's the only thing that got me through my mother's death. It would come in waves so that I could focus and move on and get through it. And my prayer for you is that it comes in waves, because it's going to come. You can't work it away. I tried that. You can't drink it away. I tried that. You got to let it come the way it comes. And my prayer is that it comes in gentle waves to your soul. So that's what I've been praying for you. My mother died in 2009, and it was her who introduced me to the voice of Aretha Franklin. We would be driving up to the country, and she would have the music blasting, and I could tell what my father had done by the music she was playing. If she was playing Respect or Think, I knew he had done something wrong. But if she was playing Dr. Feelgood, he might have done something right. So you can imagine my shock. Some 30 years later, I get a phone call and says, this lady on the phone, she says, "Hi, this is Aretha Franklin." I say, "Her?" She said, "I love Medea." I said, "Well, you know she's not real, right?" She said, "I don't care. I want to talk to her." I said, "Hello." She loved to laugh. She would invite me to things over the years, and we would sit and talk. She'd want me to come back in the dressing room, but I couldn't stay in there too long, because in the dressing room she would have the heat somewhere between 85 and double hell. She loved it warm in there, but we talked over the years. When I found out she was ill, I called her up, and I was talking like Medea, making her laugh a little bit. And the last time that I saw her perform was at the Kennedy Center Honors that everybody's talking about. I was there. I was up in the box with President Obama. She comes out and she starts singing, and all of these upright, stiff politicians are all over the place. But when she sang, all of that went away. All that pomp and circumstance and pretension went away. She brought them all to their feet so they can bow to the Queen of Soul. It was a wonderful moment. And as I'm standing there and I'm applauding, President Obama's in front of me. He turns to me and said, "That's why she's the Queen of Soul." And I started thinking about that when I found out she was ill. The Queen of Soul, the soul, the soul, the Queen of Soul. What does that mean? Well, the soul is the spirit created by God, which dwells in our flesh. So if she is the Queen of Soul, what happened was, and we know that she was the Queen of Soul, what happened was every time she sang from her soul. She sang from this special place that was in her soul, be it gospel, be it jazz, be it blues, be it R&B. It was always from her soul, whatever the music genre was. But when Aretha sang gospel, something happened. Something would shake the room. When Aretha sang Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound, it never sounded any sweeter than it did coming from Aretha. When Aretha sang gospel, when she said, "Oh Mary, don't you weep, oh Martha, don't you moan," I believe that Mary went somewhere and dried her own eyes, and Martha went over and stopped moaning in the corner, because when Aretha sang gospel, what happened was she connected with the Creator, with the created. So there she was calling on the name of Jesus. When Aretha sang gospel, something shifted, something happened in the atmosphere. And what I'm glad about is that I had an opportunity to know this woman, to know that she had this power to stand in between all these different genres and touch us in all these different ways. I am grateful to her. Family, my prayer for you, I want to be very brief because I know we've been here for a while. My prayer for you is that the grief comes in waves and you can make your way through it. And I'm so grateful to God that Aretha walked this earth. I'm grateful to God that we had the fortune to be on this planet at the same time as Aretha Franklin. So God bless you. Thank you for asking me to be here. Thank you for this moment. I love y'all so much. Take care.
Why don't we all stand? Mother Cicely Tyson is, I believe, 91 years young.
God knows we have been blessed. I thought I would start by saying good day, but I don't think that is necessary. We all know what a great day this has been and how blessed we are to be here on this day. I want to offer my condolences to the family. What a triumphant gift you have given the world, that they have been able to experience, no matter how, this moment in time with us. Sabrina, you are and will always be in my heart. God bless you. Aretha was the sum total of her life's experience. And she shared that with us through the soul songs she sung. She spoke to us through her soul and everything she experienced. And that's why, no matter what she was singing, she moved every single person. And so, with apologies for Paul Lawrence Dunbar, I said, "Grand, stop that noise, Miss Lucy. Put that music book away. What do you keep on trying? If you practice till you're great, you can't start no notes of flying like the ones that rants and rings from the kitchen to the big woods when Aretha sings. You ain't got the natural voices for to make the sound come right. You ain't got the tones and twistings for to make it sweet and loud. I'm going to tell you one thing now, Miss Lucy, and I'm telling you for true. When it comes to real rock singing, it ain't no easy thing to do. Easy enough for folks to holler looking at them lines and dots when there ain't no one can sense it and the tune comes in and spots. But for real melodious singing, just to scratch your heart and cleans, just you stand and listen with me when Aretha sings. Ain't you never heard Aretha? Bless her soul, pick up the frog. Look here, ain't you joking, honey? Well, you don't know what you lost. You ought to hear that gal a-waddling, rabbits, larks, all them things. They stand back and hide their faces when Aretha sings. Fiddling man stopped his fiddling. Throw his fiddling on the shelf. Mockingbird stopped his whistling because he's just so ashamed of himself. Folks are playing on the banjo, drops their fingers on the string. Bless your soul! Forgets to move them when Aretha sings. She just spreads her mouth and hollers, "Come to Jesus." They're sinners, trembling steps and voices, timid like a door near. And then she turns to, "Lord, oh, or simply to the cross she cling, and you find your tears are dropping when Aretha sings. Who that say that on the praises with a mass never works? Hush your mouth. I hear that music. Is it rises up in mountains, floating o'er the hills and valleys, way above this burying soul, until it makes its way in glory to the very grace of God. Oh, it's sweeter than the music of an educated band. And it's dearer than the battle song of triumph in the land. It seems holier than an evening when the solemn church bells rings, as I sit and calmly listen while Aretha sings. Darcy, quit that bark and hear me. Maybe make that child keep still. Can't you hear the music from the valley to the hill? Oh, well, let me listen. I can hear it through the breasts of angels wave. So, it's sweet. Sweet, when Aretha sings. Thank you.
Our final speaker before we go into Bishop Paul Morton and Yolanda Adams is the collaborator and guardian of Aretha's music for the last 40 years. Need I say more? The legendary Clive Davis.
Truly memorable day. What an incredible celebration of an incredible life. Aretha loved Detroit. She loved her life in Detroit. She loved her family. And Detroit, you led the world in loving Aretha. When I sat down in her kitchen, when I had dinner with Aretha in 1979, she already was, of course, the Queen of Soul. She had given the world respect, natural woman, chain of fools, I never loved a man the way I love you, rock steady, amazing grace, think, and so much more. We talked into the night about the next 5 years of recording when Aretha would be over 40 years old. Much of music had changed. Could she still compete? Well, there was no doubt in Aretha's mind, and frankly, there was no doubt in my mind. I signed her to Arista Records, and 5 years turned into more than 3 decades. We were committed to show all the budding musicians how long a career can last. For Aretha was indeed a true genius of American music. Every time I was with her, whether professionally or personally, I was conscious that she was and would always be a significant part of history. And over the course of my life, I've been blessed with the opportunity to spend time with presidents of countries, president of successful trend-setting companies. I've spent time with many successful artists, writers, and movie makers. Most of these individuals have affected the world in some way, but Aretha is in her own very special category. Aretha's voice will be heard. Aretha's voice will be impacting. Aretha's voice will be influencing others literally for centuries to come. And so we got to work year after year, well into her 40s, yes, well into her 50s and beyond. And we had hits like Jump to It, Get It Right, Who's Zooming Who, Freeway of Love, I Knew You Were Waiting for Me. Sisters are doing it for themselves. A rose is still a rose. Aretha would once again have #1 records, gold albums, platinum albums, and several new Grammy awards. She relished, she really relished and cherished every moment of it. And I was so privileged to be there and personally witness the magnitude of talent of this singer's singer, this musician's musician. And let me add for you that behind her God-given natural talent was the drive of a total perfectionist. After we decided on the material for an ensuing album, she would go into Aretha mode. And she privately rehearsed, she practiced, she prepared. And by the time she came into the studio, she literally owned the song. Everyone in the studio would be in awe of her mastery when she stepped up to the microphone. It was a real rarity if she ever were to be if she ever were to do more than 2 takes. She was in control, and she was to nail it. Plus, Aretha was electrifyingly intuitive. We were about to go to Washington, D.C. for her to perform at President Clinton's inauguration. We brainstormed the song and chose I Dreamed a Dream from Les Mis. Aretha, if you would, took command of that song in her mind. Flash forward to the performance, and she was really totally in command right from the beginning, hitting those soaring notes as only she could. Everyone in the audience was transfixed as the performance kept building. And then the one and only Aretha, on her own, spontaneously changed the lyric from I dreamed a dream to I have a dream. And that instinctive switch to the Martin Luther King mantra made the climax chillingly unforgettable to this day. Aretha was being Aretha in a class by herself. So today on this very special day, permit me to talk of Aretha the person. Yes, as you've heard, indeed, Aretha was indeed kind and thoughtful. And when she loved you, she really loved you. She was genuinely funny, occasionally with an on-the-money topical sarcasm, but she definitely had a keen wit. She had a great sense of humor. But what stood out personally to me was that she really defined loyalty. If I were to ask her to perform at a special event, she was there. Yes, she traveled the country by bus, and in the winter roads are not very friendly, but she would be there. One year, I was getting a Lifetime Achievement Award at New York's Waldorf Astoria Hotel, and she was telling me that she had begun seriously studying something totally new that she had never before tried. She was studying ballet. She refused to tell me anything about the performance that was to come, other than, Clive, it's going to knock your socks off, and everybody in the audiences as well. Frankly, I couldn't at all imagine what it would be, and no one there will ever forget it, least of all me. The night came, the curtain went up, the orchestra started playing, and then Aretha came on, straight-faced, in a tutu. Yes, a tutu. There was the Queen of Soul, accompanied by members of the City Center Ballet Company, she doing well-rehearsed pirouettes and dancing with most impressive agility and dignity. It was wonderful. My friend Aretha was going to extraordinary lengths to make sure the night would be a night always to be remembered. And hopefully, this reveals to you the incredible wide-ranging quest for knowledge that Aretha had. She studied classical music at Juilliard. She loved opera, and of course her performance without notice of Nessun Dorma at the 1998 Grammys. You all remember that, you'll never forget it. That truly will always show that there is nothing that Aretha could not inimitably master. And of course, her commitment, as you've heard all afternoon, to political activism is well known, as is her famous quote, "I have the money, I get it from black people, and I want to use it in ways that will always help our people." And you all know that Aretha did just that for the Reverend Martin Luther King and so many others. She was a true Renaissance woman. She loved art, she loved fashion, and she loved food. Yes, Aretha loved her soul food, but over the years, as she came to New York, the two of us would go out to restaurants in New York, Bernadette, Four Seasons, Grand Oui, for the finest cuisine in the most beautiful environment. And although she would no longer fly to Europe, every time I would get back from Saint-Tropez or from Capri, she would want all the details. What restaurants did I go to? What did I eat? Who was there? She loved life. Aretha loved life. I'm so glad that 2 years ago, I finally purchased Andy Warhol's great portrait that he did for one of Aretha's album covers. Yes, I walk by this painting several times each week, and I do think of the irreplaceable Aretha. And it's just not the same. I think of her timeless influence on the countless generations to come. But you know something. There is, and there always will be, a huge void. I will miss, deeply miss, that once in a lifetime voice. I will greatly miss her hearty laugh, those endless curiosity questions to me, and that thirst and that wonderful hunger for life. Yes, I will deeply miss my great friend, the ultimate natural woman. Aretha, may you rest in eternal peace forever.
Put your hands together for them. Coming now to the close of our remarks, we call on now for the queen of the radio here in Detroit, Mildred Gaddis, to come. She'll be followed by the best point guard, pound for pound, ever to play in the NBA, Detroit's own two-time champion, Isaiah Thomas. He'll be followed by Ron Moulton, personal friend, franchise owner, McDonald's Restaurants. And then the one and only Michael Eric Dyson, professor of sociology, Georgetown University. Let's receive these four. Give them a hand, please.
My name is Mildred Gaddis, and I love Aretha Franklin. Clarence, Eddie, Teddy, and Kelf, thank you for sharing your mother with the rest of the world. It is a sacrifice that most people could never, ever understand. We thank you for your sacrifices, and we honor you. Some people come into our lives and quickly go. Some come, stay for a while, touch our hearts, and we're never, ever the same. Aretha Franklin was more than a melody. She was born at a time when the world was an unsure and an unsafe place for a woman. Hello world, meet Aretha Louise Franklin. She was talented, she was fierce, and she stepped to the beat of her own drum. She was strategic, she was methodical, and she moved with precision. There are some folk who claim that they would rather be in a boxing ring with Mike Tyson than try to negotiate a deal with Aretha Franklin. She was not to be messed with. She was soft-spoken because she really understood that the loudest person in the room is the weakest person in the room. She was unapologetically black, she was gifted, and she was in love with her people. Aretha Franklin believed and knew that loving yourself and your people does not negate you loving somebody else. And so she made no apologies for being in love with black people. Through her own challenges and her pain, she taught us that royalty does not weep in the streets. In this era of reality TV and social media where people are hanging everything out, letting the world know, no, 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 no. That was not our Aretha. She had class. And whatever those issues were, she handled them privately. Imagine this. Aretha Franklin remained relevant for 60 years. For 60 years. Trends come and they go. Aretha Franklin remained relevant. Over her vast career, she created a lot of wealth. But the difference about Aretha and some people today is she didn't Facebook her cars and her mansions, and she didn't do any of that. She used her blessings to share them with other people. You couldn't catch Aretha having anything that had to do with material wealth, throwing it out all around for people to see. That's not who she was. And I think there's a lesson there for our 21st century friends. You've heard a lot today about Aretha's parties, and boy, did she throw some parties. But here's the interesting thing. You didn't know when you attended one of Aretha's parties if you would meet the president, the vice president, the late Johnny Cochran, the barber on the corner. That was Aretha. Aretha brought all of us with her as she climbed and achieved. And she always wanted, think about this, everybody who's had any kind of personal relationship with Aretha, she always wanted to give us experiences we had never had before in our lives. And they were all memorable experiences. She would take you and introduce you to Susan Rice, who was head of the National Security Council. She knew everybody by name. And it really mattered to her at the end of the party whether or not you had a good time, whether or not you enjoyed yourself, whether or not the food was okay. That's who our Aretha was. Huel Perkins, local TV anchor. Aretha called Huel over 15 times watching stories on television. She checked him a couple of times asking, why do you all have to run that story? But here's what she did. Aretha would see a family had been burned out, a child who was hit in the head. I don't know if it was a television or what fell on the child's head. She would say to Huel Perkins, get me the address. I want to send a check, and don't you tell anybody about it. That's who our Aretha was. Not very long ago, Aretha called me one night. And the first call was, and whenever we talked, it would be a brief, most of the time it was a brief phone call. This night, it was a 5-minute call. And within 3 minutes, Aretha called me back. And during that call, she talked about friendship. She talked about loyalty. And she talked about the future. It was a long conversation. And she talked about her long friend, Beverly Bradley, who was more like a sister friend as opposed to just a friend. And ladies, I want to tell you, we all need a Beverly Bradley in our lives. Because it was Beverly Bradley who, near the end, stopped her life, moved in with Aretha, and took care of Aretha, and loved her, and nurtured her, and kept her happy. So much to the extent the nurses reveled at what they saw whenever they would come to check on Aretha. That's what true friendship is about. That's what loyalty is about. And that is what love is about. And when it became clear that the end was near and that there was a need to stay close to Aretha, Beverly told Aretha, I'm going to ride this one out with you. And she did just that. Beverly, we love you. We thank you. Aretha's passing leaves a great hole for a whole lot of us. For a whole lot of us. But she gave us so much to use and to keep moving. And if we truly love Aretha the way that we say that we do, we need to keep this legacy moving by honoring, by sharing, and understanding and knowing that whatever we have is not because of our own might. Like Aretha, God gave it to us for us to share. I am grateful for the friendship, Aretha, for the love, that you've shown me, I bid you a good moving.
Hello, everyone. To the family, dignitaries, friends of Miss Aretha Franklin, it is with sad eyes and a very heavy heart that I stand before you today to celebrate our Queen, Aretha. I was introduced to Aretha by my mother. We grew up on the west side of Chicago. Before this thing called the women's rights, equal rights, women's movement, before those catchphrases were out, Aretha and my mom, somehow they connected through the music. My mom was from Vicksburg, Mississippi. And in the 60s, in the 70s, my mom would sit in the windowsill humming the words to I Say a Little Prayer for You. And Tyler, my mom was no different than yours. I seemed to always know what was going on between my mom and dad by Aretha's music. My father had just lost his job, so the music, I Say a Little Prayer for You, meant a lot to us in the household at that time. Aretha found a way to comfort my mom and to comfort us all during those troubling times. I got to know Aretha personally when I first got here to Detroit. I was introduced to her, Karen, Sabrina, Kincaid. It was actually the first family I met when I got here to Detroit. And I see a lot of my friends in the audience, and I know a lot of you are smiling and thinking about how I was when you first met me. And how naive I was about the world, about this thing called celebrity. I didn't know how to pay my bills. I didn't know how to pay a phone bill, electric bill. I knew nothing. And this family took care of me through some very tough times. I was honored to get to know Aretha, and she had a great love for sports. She loved the Detroit Pistons, and I know I was her favorite bad boy. But I gotta tell you, there was nothing more inspiring for me to look up and see my mom sitting in the stands, sitting next to Aretha, sandwiched in between Stevie, watching a Piston game. And I would always pause sometimes during a game and just ask myself, I wonder if they knew how many nights they got my mom through and how many tears she shed listening to Aretha's music. And to have my mom sitting right next to Aretha in the stadium was such a powerful and inspiring moment for me. So Aretha, I thank you. And as we mourn her loss today, I'm also reminded that we must celebrate and lift up to the heavens our queen, Miss Aretha Franklin. Because when the world was telling us, ain't no way, she found a way to inspire all of us with hope, with love, and dreams through her music. Her voice, her soulful instrument, found a way to help this nation soothe and deal with its troubled past. You know, recently, Clive Davis and I had the pleasure of escorting our queen to the Kennedy Center Honors in Washington, D.C. I was so humble when she asked me to escort her, but I must tell you, I was kind of nervous too. Because I kept asking myself, how do you escort the queen? And is there some type of protocol? I didn't want to embarrass her. I didn't want to embarrass myself. But I can still remember when she showed up and she took my arm and we walked the red carpet. And the ease of her stride and the comfort that she felt and the way she introduced me as if I was still and was a family member. Not just a friend, but as part of the family. And Clive, I know you remember, as we're standing there and she's being interviewed, she stopped during the middle of the interview and said, "Do you know Isaiah?" She always found a way to make us all feel comfortable and make us all feel good. Not only did she command respect, but she demanded respect. She lived an unforgettable life, and she left all of us with unforgettable memories. I just got back from Paris, France, and I'm sure this has happened to all of you over the last week or so. The spontaneous singing. You may be sitting in a restaurant. You may be in a hotel. You may be walking down the street. And before you know it, somebody is singing Aretha's song. And I know it's happened to all of you this last week. We were in a restaurant, and they started playing her music. And before you know it, everyone in the restaurant was singing and dancing, and they stopped eating. So the effect that she has had on the world, there are very few people who come along that can shift the consciousness of the world. There are very few people that come along that can move the universe by her being. What Aretha has done, she shifted the universe. And she moved us all, not only with her songs, but through her spirit and through her love. And we know her for her songs and we know her for her music. But as we look behind us, it wasn't just about the music. When this family first adopted me and I got here to Detroit, Aretha set me down, her and Coleman Young, Mayor Coleman Young. And they kept asking me, what are you going to do? What are you going to say about Detroit? And they taught me about Detroit. and they gave me the courage to speak on race, class, and gender while I was a champion. I'm going to miss you, Aretha. I'm going to miss our phone calls. I'm going to miss your words of wisdom and advice. The world is going to miss you. I want you to know I love you. The world loves you. And most importantly, Aretha, Detroit loves you. Thank you.
Aretha. Aretha is my friend, my sister. We met exactly 30 years ago in 1988 when she moved next door to my wife, Leslie, and me. At that time, our houses were the only two houses on the block, so we became very, very close. When I say Aretha is my friend, my sister, keep in mind that she was a single, rich, black woman living in a huge house by herself. There are not too many women that will call you up at 1 a.m. in the morning to come over and make sure her house is secure. And then, every time after I finished checking out the house, she would just start talking about her two favorite topics, politics and her sons. Then she would usually end up, oh my God, singing and playing the piano in her pajamas, sometimes till 2 and 3 a.m. in the morning. Not for me, just that was her music. She's just sitting there in her element. Now, of course, just so you know, my wife always okayed me to go over there. Because of her love for Aretha. And I know that to be true because she has never given me the okay to go over any other woman's house at 1 a.m. in the morning. Aretha was a giving person. In 2003, I asked Aretha if she would mind stopping by the assisted living home where my mom lived for her 90th birthday, and if she would stop by and just say hello to my mom. I mean, that would be a big treat for my mom. Aretha said, I'll think about it. On my mom's 90th birthday, Wednesday, December 3rd, 2003, Aretha showed up at the assisted living house with her sons Teddy, Eddie, Brenda, Sabrina, backup singers, a full band, and performed for 1 hour for all the residents in the assisted living home. And then she topped it off by singing happy birthday to my mom. You ask Aretha for a little, and she will always give you more than you ask for. Family, I will never forget that day in my life. Leslie and I traveled with Aretha on her bus. Oh, that bus. From Detroit to New York to Los Angeles and around the country. Of course, that was just the first year only because you learn very quickly that Aretha would not allow the air conditioning on the bus because of her voice. So you learn to start flying and meeting Aretha at the final destination. I think Tyler Perry said that her dressing room was very hot. That bus was even hotter. She changed my life, my friend, my sister. That's what real friends do. Going to the Grammys with her year after year, to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame when she was inducted, to the White House. I could go on and on. The people that I've met through Aretha, the presidents, the famous entertainers and athletes that grace our presence today, or award-winning record producers like Clive Davis, or the great educator and author Michael Eric Dyson. People that I've met over the years, all people that I personally really admire and respect. There are also people that I've met through Aretha that many of you have never heard of, and I admire and respect them also, such as her security detail. Security, if you've ever been part of Aretha's security, stand up, raise your hand in honor of Aretha. You know who you are. Hilton Kincaid, Ron Fleming, Corey, JJ, Fred Neal, Bill Cooper, Jeff, Marlon, Harry Kincaid, Al Denning, Brian, Tyrone, Robert Jackson, Darren, Staffy, Curtis, and Ken Myree, and others. These guys looked out for Aretha. These guys really cared, and not just for a payday. You know that when you're in the green room talking to them and listening to their concerns about her safety. I thank you for protecting my friend, my sister, and the Queen to all of us. In conclusion, to the friends that I've met because of Aretha, Will, Beverly, Dolores, Carlton, Greg Dunmore, Billy Bryant, Tanya, Tracy, Lisa, Zaretha, and others, we will always be friends. To the relatives, how do you mention the relatives? Sabrina, Brenda, Earlene, Bootsy, Vaughn, and I could go on and on. You know who you are. I love you guys, and I will always be there for the family, always. Finally, to the sons, Teddy, Eddie, Kelv, Clarence, remember your family and friends that have been with you for years, because you're about to meet a lot of people that will now want to be your new best friend. You will also meet some people that will have the best investments in the world for you. My advice, go slow, be careful, and be smart. If you guys ever need a friend or a second dad to talk to, you've got my number. Give me a call. To Aretha. Aretha, my friend, my sister, I know I will see you again one day, sitting at that piano and singing those songs. And maybe the next time I'll be lucky enough to move next door to you. Thank you, and God bless.
To Bishop Ellis and Reverend Smith, to President Clinton and her husband Bill, to Attorney General, soon to be President Holder, and to Reverend Jackson and Minister Farrakhan. If some cosmic ethnographer were to drop down here and do a biopsy, an extract of living tissue of black genius, here today would be the veritable cornucopia of its radical expression. We done had all kind of singing up in here, from high European-derived classical composition to the gut bucket gospel grueling reality of our blues and soul traditions. We have heard singers hit high notes and pan the depths of the diapason stop of the range and scale of American music. But we are here for one voice, one reason, one woman who was a freakishly precocious woman, a bronze wunderkind of the gospel, born in the legendary rhetorical room she gestated in of her father, Clarence LaVon Franklin. She took me one day to the Triumph Awards, and there she had me attempt to explain his genius. C.L. Franklin practiced the species of black sacred speech called whooping. How does one explain whooping? The coarsened articulation, the striated diction, the elastic grammar, speech pressured by music that turns into song. You will quickly see one of the greatest exemplars of that rhetorical form in the presence of the Reverend Dr. Jasper Williams. But it was in that womb that she was born, and in that Mississippi mud arrived Detroit deity. Aretha Franklin at 14 sang "Never Grow Old." And in singing it, you could feel the theological prescience and the clairvoyance that God gave to her. She became a vehicle of the on-high purpose that was radiated in that beautiful brown body. And when Aretha sang at 14, she convinced people that indeed she would never grow old. But then she recorded the song again when she was 30 years old. And in recording that song on her epic Amazing Grace, where she gave us a vision of a return to the gospel world that her father claimed she had never left anyhow. And then when she sang that song about 5 minutes and 21 seconds in, on a 9-minute and 57-second song, you felt the volcanic eruption, the glissando, the melisma stretching a single note across several syllables so that she could articulate the deep and profound realities that only song could capture. Aretha sang that song at 30 in a different way she sang it at 14. Why is that? Between 14 and 30, there was a whole bunch of living. She never loved a man the way she loved that man. She said, if you're going to be a man demanding a do-right woman, you better be a do-right man. Now we know the great scholar Farrah Jasmine Griffin speaks about the inchoate feminist perspective, never calling her feminist because Aretha Franklin never called herself a feminist, but she had feminist sensibilities. The independent, autonomous reach of black female identity was regnant in her rhetoric. She was black girl magic before there was black girl magic. And so between 14 and 30, there was a lot of living. There was a chain of foods that she was conscribed into. There was the reality of the hurt and pain, the ardor, the ecstasy, the suffering, and the reality that we had to confront as a black people. And don't get it twisted, she was black without apology or excuse. And she was American without argument or exception. She was black because she was from the blackest city in the world, Detroit. I know y'all jealous. You from Chicago, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh. You good, but you ain't got the D. Dardanetta Shrimp Shack, Fago Red Pop, Verner's Ginger Ale, Coney Island Hot Dog. The future hitched a ride in a Cadillac and found its destiny in a Ford. We had Motown music. I know everybody else had music, but y'all ain't had it like Detroit had it. The greatest artist ever produced, Mr. Stevie Wonder. The greatest songwriter ever, Smokey Robinson. And for a long while, the greatest entertainer, Mr. Michael Jackson. And the greatest singer in the world, Aretha Franklin. She was an edifying thief. She took other people's songs and made them her own. When Otis Redding heard her sing, he said, "She done took my song." Oh, yes, she did, and he was glad she took it, because she spelled out in a way he never spelled out respect. She had to articulate it and enunciate it so folk could understand what she was talking about. Then in that belly of blackness in Detroit, without apology or excuse, that embrace of her blackness led her to be political. We got all kind of music now that ain't got nothing to do with nothing except cars and money and glory. I ain't mad at that, but she was about getting Angela Davis out of jail. She was about working with Martin Luther King Jr. and Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton. She was about transforming the existence of black America. Now Negroes scared to say they black, scared to show up at a two-black place. That's why some black folk ain't here today. They sending letters. They don't want to get up in this blackness. They don't want to feel the nasty power of this blackness. We are black in Detroit. We don't care. Take your shoes off. Dip it in the water. Get baptized. And then this orange apparition had the nerve to say she worked for him. You lugubrious leech. You doppelganger of deceit and deviance. You lethal liar. You dim-witted dictator. You foolish fascist. She ain't worked for you. She worked above you. She worked beyond you. Get your preposition right. Then he got the nerve to say he gonna grab it. That ain't what Aretha Franklin said. I'm gonna give you something you can feel. Like the brothers in the street say, tap lightly, like a woodpecker with a headache. And so, don't you sully the memory of our great queen. Aretha Franklin was an original. Never one like her before, never another like her afterward. She was bold and brilliant and courageous and beautiful and indebted to the traditions that sparked our renewal. She refused to sell out. She remained herself all along in her life. And so as I take my seat, you got to remember Aretha Franklin gave us something deep and powerful. And when she made her transition, Farrah Jasmine Griffin, the professor at Columbia, said she was doing work even after she died. When she made her transition, convictions came down. Immunity pleas were made. Folk got sent to jail. Even as an ancestor, she doing work. She moved from being the queen of soul to the queen of souls. She is indeed looking over us as our ancestor, never forgetting that she will walk with us. I had to go the other day from South Bend, Indiana, into Chicago, leaving Notre Dame, going to Chicago to speak. My ticket said the plane left at 4:33, but it arrived at 4:20. I had landed before I took off. If you ain't already at where you going, you ain't gonna be there when you arrive. You got to already know where you heading. Aretha Franklin ain't just made no transition. She been building up her housing equity in another place with another God who loved her soul. She was already there. She said a prayer for us. She loved us, and now she is the queen of our souls. Long live the queen. Long live the queen.
The one and only Reverend Professor Michael Eric Dyson. At this time, we will have Jennifer Hudson. She will come with Amazing Grace. for the eulogist, the Reverend Dr. Jasper Williams, Salem Baptist Church, Atlanta, Georgia. This is the family eulogist, eulogized her great father, her sisters, brothers, and now the Queen. Put your hands together for Reverend Jasper Williams.
34 years ago, almost to the day, August of 1984, a little more upstairs, if you will. 1984, thank you. I was privileged to deliver the eulogy for Dr. C.L. Franklin. And I opened that eulogy by asking everybody who was there to join me in his prayer hymn. And that was the way we opened it up. I'm going to ask the Songbird of the South, Sister Dottie Peoples, to accompany me. Father, I stretch my hand to thee. No, no other help. I know if thou withdraw thine saying from me. Oh, where the I go, Father, I stretch my hand to thee. No, I want to talk about what we all have mentioned on today, and this is my subject as I attempt to eulogize Aretha Franklin. My subject is Aretha, the Queen of Soul. Aretha, the Queen of Soul. Repeat after me, if you will. Aretha, the Queen of Soul. Sometimes during the month of May in 1964 at the Regal Theater in Chicago, Illinois, a local disc jockey by the name of Span Cooper officially anointed and crowned Aretha the Queen of Soul. But I have come here today to tell you, the people of the earth, that God crowned Aretha Queen of Soul long, long, long time ago. You may ask when. I'll tell you when. Back before the morning star. Back before the sons of God cried out for joy. Before there was a when or a where, a why or a which, a this or a that, God crowned Aretha Queen of Soul. We see that here in the second chapter of the first book of the Bible, Genesis chapter 2, verse 7 says, "And the Lord God formed man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul." In this one verse, do we see the total being and makeup of mankind? This verse alludes to the trichotomy of man, that man is made up out of three entities. And it lists these entities: body, spirit, and soul. It says, "And the Lord God formed man from the dust of the ground." That's man's body. In the Greek, it is suma. "And breathed into his nostrils the breath of life." That's pneuma, translated spirit. And then it says, "And man became a living soul." That's suchi, or the inner man, his emotions, his will. Man became a living soul. And so this word form, God formed man. It's like that of a potter that takes his clay and shapes it so as to form the vessel that he is trying to make. And this is saying, in essence, that God was totally involved in the fashioning of mankind, that God took that dust of the earth, took it and formed it and shaped it, configured it until he got it like he wanted it to be. And then God stood it up, because it did not become he until he breathed into its nostrils the breath of life, and then he became a living soul. So then this is saying, in essence, as it relates to all of us, I am a spirit, I have a soul, I live in my body. I wish you would just repeat that after me if you don't mind. I am a spirit, I have a soul, I live in my body. But when we hear the title Queen of Soul, how does that connect with God? Queen of Soul. Well, this title comes from our black culture. You know, when we talk about Queen of Soul, it alludes to a form of music that is known to us as soul music. So what is that? What is soul music? Soul music is a type of music that is a combination of some of all of the music. Jazz splattered with a little gospel, peppered with a little soul. It has all kinds of rock, and then meshed into an urban rhythm kind of blues is soul music. So with all of the various musics wrapped up into soul music, that's evidence of the fact that there must be a God somewhere. But what does this word soul mean? What is soul? I think it is appropriate right along through here if I would allow Aretha's father, the late Dr. C.L. Franklin, to come and stand before us and tell us
Dr. Franklin, what soul is. Because back in 1955, Dr. C.L. Franklin created an album that was called the 23rd Psalms. And when he got to verse 3, where it says, "He restoreth my soul," he said something I would like to quote. He says, and I quote, "Soul is pretty hard to define. Nobody can really say what soul is." He said, as close as we can come to defining soul is to say that soul is that part of man that is a little bit like God. That means then that God in man is soul. Again, God in man is soul. Thank you, Lord. And so when we come down to this thing called soul, today in our world, we look at our world as it is flowing and going and moving, and it is quite obvious that with the world moving as it is, that mankind is moving toward losing his soul. One day, back in the days of slavery, there was this slave owner who was getting ready to travel abroad, and he called his top-notch slave and said to him, "John, I'm getting ready to go overseas, and I'll be gone for some several months, and I want you to take care of my child. I want you to take care of my child's clothes, take care of my child's shoes, take care of my child until I return." And then some several months went by, and John saw the boss coming down the road and ran to him and got down on his knees and said, "Master, sir, here are your child's clothes. I washed them, I rinsed them, I ironed and I folded them neatly. Master, sir, here are your child's shoes. I shined them and I buffeted them. But master, sir, I lost the child. I lost the child." One of these old days, that awful day, will surely come. Upon it I will make haste, when I must stand before my judge and give and face that solemn test. That would be a critical time for some of us, because we will say on that day, "Master, sir, that body you gave me, I cherished it. I bathed it. I showered it. I washed it. I brushed the teeth daily. Master, sir, I put colognes under the neck and perfumes on my body. I anointed it with precious creams and ointments. Master, sir, I wined and dined the body you gave me. I laid and played in the body you gave me. I huffed and I puffed with the body you gave me. I joked and I jest with the body you gave me. But master, sir, I lost my soul. How cold, how chilling, how non-redeeming. Listen. Master, sir, I lost my soul. I lost my soul. But what about your soul? What condition is your soul in today? That part of you that is supposed to be like God, where is it? What's going on? Have you lost your relationship with God? Have you? Let me tell you this. 100 years from this moment, it'll make no difference about how much money you got in your bank account. It'll make no difference about how many stocks and bonds and mutual funds you have invested in the Dow Jones Index. It won't make any, never mind about how many men you have, women you have, what you've done, how she got mad with him because of what you said about her. 100 years from this moment, the only thing about any of us that will matter is whether or not your soul has been saved. That's all. That's all. That's all that will matter. But shift with me now, if you will, and come to where we are with the eyes of the world on us in this homegoing celebration of Aretha, the Queen of Soul. The question that I want to ask, how can we take this iconic stature of Aretha Franklin, who we deem Queen of Soul? I mean, how can we walk out of this room today and say that it is Aretha's life, it is Aretha's legacy that has brought about real, true change in our world on today? I mean, how can we do that? How can we say that her life and what she has involved herself in while here on earth, that in this moment of the last day of the month of August 2018, when we carried her to her final resting place, true change came to our world. How can we immortalize the Queen of Soul? Well, right in here, we see the United States of America, the land of the free and the home of the brave. If we can see the black America, the African American community, if we can just remove the veneer, take away the prejudice, lay aside the biasness, and take a good, clean look at where we are in black America, if we are truthful, honest, and fair, we will have to say that black America has lost its soul. The one thing that black America needs today, more than anything else, is to come back home to God. Hush, listen. I hear the Queen echoing in the wind. Something must be done, done, done. Something must be done, done, done. Something must be done, done, done. The Queen is wanting to issue her mandate. She's wanting to sign her executive order. Something must be done, done, done. You may not know it, but Aretha did an awful lot for the civil rights movement. You've heard the various speakers talk about how she worked for Dr. King and took no monies for her services, how she mounted that podium and sang, "Precious Lord, take my hand," when we buried him back in 1968. And one of the other main things that I don't think too many of us may have recognized, but it was Aretha who spoke out and delivered Angela Davis from the awesome situation that she found herself in. And the thing that I remember about it is that my uncle, Reverend A.R. Williams, in Memphis, Tennessee, was close confidant, bosom friend to Dr. Franklin. They played checkers every day. It was a time for them to kick back, unwind, relax, and talk smack one to another. And I remember Uncle Buddy, that's what we called him, talked about how it was that Reverend Franklin was disturbed about how Aretha went and got Angela. So I hear her voice again rumbling through the echo of the wind. Something must be done. Something must be done. Something must be done. No one can deny that Black America, there is truly a need in our race. As I look back in retrospect, allow my mind to take a stroll back down memory's lane. There was a time when we as a race had a thriving economy. I remember we had our own little grocery stores. We had our own little hotels. They weren't big and fancy, but they were ours. I remember we even had our own little banks, ladies and gentlemen, as bad as the days of Jim Crow and segregation were. The one good thing out of segregation that it did for us, it forced us to each other instead of forcing us on each other. And we quickly come to realize that as a people, all we really have is one another. But when we marched, when we protested, when we got through singing, we shall overcome. Yes, we were rewarded with integration. We got what we fought for. We got what we marched for. But with the birth of integration, there also came the loss of not only the black community's economy, but there also came the loss of the black man's soul. Oh, you ain't got to say it, man. I know I'm preaching to you. We lost our soul. Oh, God, Jesus, help me today. We lost our soul. Where is your soul, black man? As I look in your house, there are no fathers in the home no more. Where is your soul? 70% of our households are led by our precious, proud, fine black women. But as proud, beautiful, and fine as our black women are, one thing a black woman cannot do. A black woman cannot raise a black boy to be a man. She can't do that. She can't do that. She can't do that. Black man, where is your soul? A study was released not long ago by Tuskegee Institute, and in this study, it showed how the Ku Klux Klan has killed 3,446 black people over an 86-year span of time. That's an awful lot of black people for anybody to kill. But the study also revealed that black people killed that number of black people not once a year and not 86 years, but every 6 months. So you multiply times 2, the 3,446, that means that we killed 6,000 plus black people every year. And over that 86-year span of time, that equates to us killing among us 592,712 black people are killed by black people. It amazes me how it is when the police kills one of us. We're ready to protest, march, destroy innocent property. We're ready to loot, steal, whatever we want. But when we kill 100 of us, nobody says anything. Nobody does anything. Black on black crime. We're all doing time. We're locked up in our mind. There's got to be a better way. We must stop this today. Think down, look down, walk down, talk down, act down. Most times we're low down. Where is your soul? And so, if you choose to ask me today, do Black Lives Matter? Let me answer like this. No. Black lives do not matter. Black lives will not matter. Black lives ought not matter. Black lives should not matter. Black lives must not matter until black people start respecting black lives and stop killing ourselves. Black lives can never matter. Walk around in our communities today, it hurts my heart. Everybody you see in our community walking around like zombies, just whacked on crack. Everybody high, everybody drunk. They walk up to you and try to reach for you. You shoo them off like they're flies. Where is your soul? Where is your God? So shoot back and come to where we are. The Queen's legacy, the Queen's life. What can we leave here saying that the Queen of Soul has done, is doing, or will do that will impact us as a race, to turn our race around? The eyes of the world are upon us today because of late Dr. C.L. Franklin. Despite the fact that his marriage faltered and he and his wife broke up, we don't know really what happened, but we do know that he ended up having to raise 4 children by himself. No, I'm not saying that Dr. Franklin exercised the best parenting skills that there are. I'm not saying that. By no impression am I trying to perpetrate that to you, because he certainly did not. There was no way that a man called upon to preach the gospel as much as he did and have the awesome responsibility of pastoring his church. There's no way in the world that he could adequately raise through parenting skills. No way he could raise 4 children. Something in the home had to be wrong. There had to be some kind of deficit. And we can tell that it was a deficit somewhere because of the way the Queen sang. Most of the songs we heard her sing, particularly in her early years, we could feel the pain. We could feel the hurt. We could feel her backsets and setbacks in life. We could feel her heartaches and heartbreaks in life because they met our heartaches. They met our backsets, our setbacks. We could feel that when she sang her song, Natural Woman, Ain't No Way. All of those songs that she sang. I'm not saying negatively about Dr. Franklin, because I went down that same road. There's no need of me standing up here trying to make you think that my life has been squeaky clean, because it hasn't. Particularly when it comes down to the home, oh God, Jesus. When it comes down to where and what the responsibility of us as a race is in our home, with our children. When we fuss and when we argue and when we fight and separate and divorce, you're not cognizant of the fact that scars are put upon our children that sometimes they never see it until they get grown and get out on their own. And then they spot and see the scars that are upon their lives. But shift here with Dr. Franklin's situation as we look here at what he did with his children, where we are with our children. He still exercised as best he could parenting skills. Anytime we stray away from God's design for what the home is supposed to be, havoc will be our results. I mean, God has told us what to do with the home. He designed the home. I mean, God put in the home a man and a woman, a father and a mother. See, God put in the home a husband and a wife, a provider and a nurturer. The provider is to provide for the home, man's responsibility. The woman is to give nurturing, which means her role is to give the child love, affection that prepares him or her for love and affection when they get out of the home. See? And whenever a man is not there and the provisions are not made for the home, and whenever the mother is not there and the child doesn't learn how to nurture and be loved and thereby love, the womb is to the child before birth what the home is to be to the child after birth. And whenever you take a foreign object and you put it into the womb before that baby is born, that's abortion before birth. And when that home is not like it ought to be, the father's not doing his part, the mother not doing her part, and the child has deficits, that's abortion after birth. And so as a race, Black America does not need better houses. Oh, we don't need no better houses. I know the government, big business and big corporations can provide for us better houses. They can give them to us. Sometimes we require and want to be given too much, too often. But a home is what I see black people need more than a house. We don't need better houses given to us. We need to make for ourselves better homes. Better homes. We need better homes. What did you say? What did you say? What did you say? Did you say, what's the difference in a house and a home? Well, may I tell you, there's a vast difference in a house and a home. A house is structural, but a home is spiritual. A house is man's master design, but a home is God's divine design. A house is a place of work, but a home is a place of peace. Oh God, keep my mind today, Jesus. A house, it gives credit, leverage, and tax benefits But a home gives neighbors, family, and community. A house has a 10, 15, 30-year mortgage, but a home has lifetime memories. God is in a home. Hell is in a house. No wonder nobody ever sings house, sweet house, but we always sing home, sweet home. So Dr. Franklin did not allow himself to be cramped into his daughter's future based on what he saw, not based upon what he thought. When he saw what his daughter had in her, he put her on a foundation so that she could rock steady, baby. That's what he did. Sometimes we mess up our children when we force them to do and be what we want them to be. God does not give our children to us. God gives our children through us. And it's to be our responsibility to bring them to where God has destined them to be. So Dr. Franklin did a super fantastic job in making sure that his daughter had the kind of life in terms of her career. You may not know about it, but I remember like it was yesterday, the flack, the criticism, how they talked about him just because he wanted his daughter to live her life and to be who she came to be. He ain't no preacher. How can he be a preacher and he preaching the gospel and she's singing the blues? Back in that day and time, oh, how they talked about him. Everybody had thumbs down on C.L. Franklin preaching the gospel and letting his daughter sing the blues. I saw it with my own eyes. I remember it was in 1960 in Memphis, Tennessee, at Ellis Auditorium. The promoters had promoted this to be a night where Reverend Dr. C.L. Franklin will preach at 8 o'clock. And everybody will hear him preach his celebrated sermon. The eagle stirs her nest. And then they said, at 10 o'clock, his daughter Aretha will be singing the blues. And everybody all over the city had thumbs down on Dr. C.L. Franklin. They were waiting for the crowd to come in at 8 o'clock, and they packed the house out thinking that everybody would leave, and the other R&B, rhythm and blues crowd would come in at 10 o'clock. And when he got through preaching The Eagle Stirs the Nest, I see him just like it was yesterday. He took his scarf, put it around his neck, put his overcoat on, and sat down. Part of the people started getting up, going out. Other crowd was coming in, and there was pure commotion and confusion. And when he sensed how confusing it was, this parent gets up and goes to the microphone and grabs it again and stands there and say, I don't know what's wrong with you all. Why you're treating me and acting like you are. I mean, Aretha is my daughter. You all think that I'm not going to sit here and listen to my daughter? If you think that's the case, what you need to do is go on and let whoever come in, because I am getting ready to sit down on this stage and listen to my daughter sing the blues. And then he turned around and said, Aretha, come on out here, baby, and sing the blues to your daddy. And everybody in that place sat down. That's not the end of the story, though. Here's the end. The same crowd who had shouted when he preached, the eagle stirred her nest. All of us shouted all over again when Aretha sang, Ain't No Way. Because that was his love for his daughter. So the key to our race and where we are now, we got to have a home. We got to turn our home, turn our houses back into a home. And so as I leave you, I just want to tell you, I'm calling for pastors and preachers of the gospel across denominational lines, across racial lines, across religious lines. I'm calling upon us to lock our arms together now, and we can turn Black America around. You say, where shall we go and what shall we do? Right in your own neighborhoods where your church is. There are struggling single moms that don't know what to do, that needs a man in the house through mentoring programs and parenting our children. We can turn Black America around. And so the Queen is saying to us, something must be done. Something must be done. If you would just hush and listen with me on the day, you can hear her voice saying, it's time now that my race turns its direction around and come back home to our God. As we stop here today and look at how our world is moving, civilization is torn by degradation, flirting with doom and disaster. High-mindedness runs like a mad dog and is beating in uncertain paths. Selfishness has evaporated the milk of human kindness, while pain and panic are chasing each other like June bugs in the summer sun. Oh Lord, it's time now that we turn around and try to get our soul back. The Queen of Soul has spoken now. Time now for Black America to come back home. Oh Lord, we've wandered far away from God, but now it's time to come home. The path of sin, too long I've wronged. Now I'm coming home. Right on, King Jesus. Oh, it's a shame how wild we've allowed our children to be. Nobody can do anything with our own children. The school teacher can't handle our children. The pastor in the church can't handle our children. The police in the streets can't handle our children. Oh, it's time. Oh, shucks, I'm about to get happy here now. To turn Black America around. Oh, Lord, whatever way the home goes, that's the way the world goes. Did you hear what I'm saying? As the home goes, so goes the street. As the street goes, so goes the neighborhood. As the neighborhood goes, so goes the city. As the city goes, so goes the state. As the state goes, so goes the nation. As a nation goes, so goes the world. Right on, King Jesus. I heard somebody sing a long time ago, what the world needs now is love, sweet love. I don't believe that, children, because it's so hard to love somebody and know that they hate you. It's hard to have love, but Aretha, the queen of soul, told us all we need to have is a little respect. Did I have a witness here? I heard her sing R-E-S-P-E-C-T. Oh, have a little respect. Ooh, just a little respect. Congress need to respect each other. The Democrats need to respect the Republicans. The Republicans need to respect the Democrats. The liberals need to respect the conservatives. The conservatives need to respect the liberals. The straights need to respect the gays. The gays need to respect the straights. Oh, everybody. Oh, shucks, I would have had a witness here. Oh, everybody. Everybody ought to give a little respect. I'm through now, children. The queen did what she could, but it's time now for us to do what we can. I say the queen did what she could. It's time now for us to do what we can. I got one more thing to tell you. If when you give the best of your service, God will, God will, God will, God will, God will. Anybody know he will? Anybody know he will? God will take care.
Come on, put your hands together. The Reverend Jasper Williams. Somebody say the Queen of Soul. While we're waiting to set Stevie Wonder up to close us out, we're so thankful to have a delegation from South Africa